Just starting off, if there's anybody who's kind of new to astrology out there. So why do we look at the stars? We look at the stars, particularly in archetypal astrology and a lot of branches of astrology, not because the stars exert some influence over us, not because they exert some force over us. There are some schools of astrology that say that, the stars exert a force, a light, some type of external force that affects our lives. It's not that way. We don't practice archetypal astrology for that reason, and a lot of forms of astrology. We look at the stars because the outer space reflects the inner space. So the terrain of the space of outside of us reflects the terrain of our inner experience of life, and also the events that are happening on the stage of our life here in the world. There's actually no boundary between the two. They're actually two sides of one coin. That's kind of like the end point of this practice, is realizing that there is no, we get the universe gives us kind of like a cheat sheet. It gives us a cheat sheet. It gives us a map to our psyche by looking at the outer space, this movement of celestial bodies. We have a map to our psyche, to our life, and that's given with us. It appears to me out of love. The universe gives it to us. It's so supportive to have that map of our psyche and our lives. And ultimately, the kind of secret written on the back of that map is that there's no division. There really isn't a division. It's kind of a materialist reductionist perception, say like my life happens within my body, within my chemistry, and everything outside is random. But actually, our life is the story of our life. It's all the events, all the people we meet, all the situations. It's the story, it's the stage. That's our lives, as are the grandeur of the heavens. That's also us. So we look at the stars to appreciate that, and also to get guidance. And an astrological archetype is what we talk about when we talk about the planets and the symbolism of the planets. So what is an archetype? What is an astrological archetype? It's a symbolism associated with a planet that has kind of a breadth to it. It has a breadth to it. So it has a real full-bodied spectrum of meaning, all the way from a challenging side to a rewarding side. And any manifestation of any phenomenon along that whole spectrum still is symbolically resonant with the core archetype of that planet. So like Venus, as an example, we'll really dig into what the symbolism of Venus is, and just as a preliminary thing, it's like, it has to do with pleasure, has to do with that which is sweet, that which is pleasurable, harmonious. So generally speaking, that's a positive, that's a welcome archetype. But there can be a challenging side to it, like say you eat too many sweets or something, that can have a challenge to it. It can be, you can get sick. You have something that's too sweet. Or if there's a kind of Venus associated with the pleasure that we receive when we partake in something beautiful. So like beauty could be actually very superficial. Beauty could be something that is superficial, that is just at the surface. And that's more on the challenging side, because it doesn't actually have a core of meaning that feels actually satisfying. It feels like a very thin veneer of pleasure. Whereas, like a beautiful act, an act of kindness, or an act of love, a beautiful act, that's also beautiful. So these examples are resonant with beauty, with the symbolism of beauty, but one's a little bit more meaningful, and the other one's a little bit more kind of misleading, I guess you could say. So an astrological archetype has a spectrum of meaning. And let's have a look at the particular archetype of Venus. So just like we said, so in our overarching way, we could say that Venus, the archetype of Venus, basically is harmony. That's a good kind of one word encapsulation of Venus, in my opinion. So harmony, when things are harmonious, they give pleasure. They give us pleasure. Like if we, say you look at somebody and they have some type of harmony of their features or something like that, it makes them attractive, makes them beautiful, it gives us pleasure to behold. You look at a painting or like a photograph or something, and there's some composition harmony of composition there, harmony of color there. And that can give us, again, a sense of pleasure. And you can kind of like strum a common chord with a friend, and you feel a sense of harmony and friendship there. That's also pleasurable. You know, you're in love. You know, you have a bond of love with somebody. That's deeply pleasurable. Yeah, so Venus is associated with pleasure. Venus is associated with harmony. You know, 3-part harmony. You know, somebody's singing, some people are singing 3-part harmony, attracts the ear because it's pleasurable. So Venus also associated with the law of attraction, that which attracts us, the principle of attraction. And then equally, there's also with Venus a kind of a core association with value, that which we value, and a sense of value and worth, because what we value, you know, what gives us pleasure, we tend to value. So there's the deep association there with worth and value, and that's important to keep in mind when looking at the retrograde, because that's really the core that the retrograde tries to shake up a bit to kind of get the crust off and really get back to the soft core of what our true values are. Okay, so let's look at what a retrograde is. So again, this is, if folks are new to astrology, that's what this is about. This is just a way of understanding retrograde. What is a retrograde? A retrograde is when a planet moves backwards. Does a planet actually move backwards in the sky? No, a planet does not really move backwards in the sky from a heliocentric view. So here you've got a heliocentric view over on this side. That is as if you were looking at the solar system from the top down, and the sun is in the center. If you're looking from the top down, the sun is in the center. No planets ever move backwards. They all move forwards. They all move in the same direction, and they never change direction. So if you change it to a geocentric view, though, which is the view from Earth, so that's what they've pictured here. Earth is the little kind of X marks the spot. And here in the heliocentric view, you can see the X marks the spot is just another planet among all the planets orbiting the sun. Whereas over here in the geocentric view, X marks the spot is the center of the solar system, the central viewing point of our experience of the solar system. And so from our viewpoint, planets appear to move backwards, because if you picture the planets and their movement like a racetrack, and they're all racing around the sun at different speeds, if you're in a car and you're racing another car and you begin to beat it, you begin to go faster than it, it will appear as if that car is moving backwards. It's not actually moving backwards, but because you're going faster than it, it appears like a visual illusion. It appears like it's moving backwards. So from the geocentric point of view on Earth, we're one of those cars in the race. And so occasionally we beat around the bend some of the other planets and they start to appear they're moving backwards. So if they're not actually moving backwards, why is it so important to us? It's important to us because from the geocentric view, we are at the center of the universe. You are the center because you are the observer. You're the observer that's looking out and experiencing life in the universe. So you're the center. And from your perspective, from our perspective here on Earth, the planet is moving backwards. And so symbolically, it is relevant. It does appear to ask us to backpedal and review. So that's a retrograde. So what does a retrograde mean? It means reassess for rebalancing. It's basically like the universe asking us to reassess. It's as if the universe has checks and balances built into it, and it's asking us to, it's a time for a particular kind of check and balance in that particular archetypal sphere of symbolism. So it's asking us to reassess, rebalance, reconsider. An interesting thing about reconsider is if you look at the Latin roots of that word, re is again, cone, with, and sitter, stars. So again with the stars, reconsider, again with the stars. That's a way that I like to think about it. To remind myself that when something's in retrograde, it's asking us to reconsider. It's asking us to again be with the stars, the celestial bodies, and see what they're asking of us. Okay. So what then does a Venus retrograde mean? So we're asked to reassess and adjust the areas of our life that are Venusian. So that's friendship, it's love, relationships, art, beauty, sensuality, and particularly value. So that's going to be both in our personal lives and for us collectively as a, as a state, as a country, as a planet. It asks us to reassess on those levels, and it's real. It really does kind of in broad, obvious strokes ask us to reassess. You'll see as we get further, it inflects differently into our unique birth charts. So it's going to inflect differently, specifically what it's going to ask of us. But as a general trend or as a general rule, friendship, is there something that's unspoken in a friendship or in your friendships? Is there an old friendship that's wanting to get reunited, reconsidered? Love, is there something there in love that hasn't really been worked through? And it's like we've treaded too far. Now we need to backtrack, work that out, untangle ourselves from that so that we can move forward. Art, is there some old art project or some old art skill that maybe you've left and it's neglected and it's time to go back and rekindle it? Beauty, your own kind of routines around your own attractiveness, something like that, reconsidering, or even beauty, what you consider to be beautiful. Sensuality, have you is there something there that you need to return to tune up? And very particularly value, our value system. It really asks a lot of our value system. Okay. So Venus retrograde and psychedelic-assisted healing sessions. Venus retrograde and psychedelic-assisted healing sessions. So in psychedelic-assisted healing sessions, the Venus retrograde tends to be fairly obvious. And it tends to show up, it tends to kind of shoulder itself through the crowd of the various themes and thoughts and present itself to us as that which really needs to be reconsidered, and it's not like we sit down with the intention and a journal or something like that in a psychedelic assisted healing experience, like what needs to be readjusted. Let me ponder on it. We don't need to do that. It will just present itself. It'll just present itself and we'll know, it will make itself known. What needs to be adjusted. And then also it depends on where in the cycle we are when we engage in the psychedelic assisted healing sessions. If you're at the beginning of the retrograde cycle, oftentimes it could be that the material that comes up is not like conclusive. It's just what is coming up is showing us something needs to be addressed that maybe we're a little blind to because we're just at the beginning of the retrograde cycle. If we do it during the shadow or before it even starts to move backwards, theme just might come up and just kind of sit and be a point of consideration. As it starts to move backwards in the beginning of the cycle, then it just presents that something needs to be done, something needs to be adjusted in these Venusian realms. If we engage in the psychedelic assisted healing session, when we are towards the end of the retrograde or in the it's already stopped and started moving forward again, then we might get the download that feels somewhat conclusive. It feels like, okay, this is more certain, like this is the way forward. This is the path forward. This is actually what needed to be adjusted. That was how to adjust it. And now that it is adjusted, we can move forward. So I'm looking forward to getting into questions about this. We're just getting to the end here, winding down. So some of the ways to make the best of the Venus retrograde cycle is really, very much in line with mindfulness meditation and the practice of psychedelic assisted healing, which is really surrender. We don't have to work too hard. We don't have to work too hard for this stuff. We want to receive it. We want to receive what is being asked of us. And it's a practice of opening up our ears, opening up our pores, opening up our senses, opening up our archetypal eye. That's what we're going to be doing in the paradigm shift integration circles. We're going to be connecting with our ability to perceive the archetypal building blocks of perception and reality and life. And so that we can kind of see, experience them shifting and speaking to us and what they're asking of us. And we want to be in a posture of surrender to do that, a posture of a receptive posture. Mindfulness means that as soon as something comes up, we don't just try and change it immediately. We just really are noting. We're kind of noting what is coming up, and we're seeing the trail of breadcrumbs of where it's leading us. In order to do that, we have to have faith. We have to have faith that the universe is intelligent. Our own inner healing intelligence is intelligent. When we engage in psychedelic-assisted healing and the inner healing intelligence is catalyzed, it knows, it's wise, and it's within us, and it's also in the universe, reflected in the way that the landscape of the heavens reflects our inner terrain. So the cosmic healing intelligence, inner healing intelligence, two sides of the same coin, grace, divinity, whatever you want to call it. We want to have faith. We want to have faith. That's really what it's asking of us, because it will take care of us. And then we get to the fourth point. We really can celebrate when we get to the point of marvel, because marvel is like appreciation. We get to see how this great orchestration, choreography is happening around us, and we get to take part in it. This dance that is just the greatest artistic creation. It's called life. It's called the universe. It's called our central part in that play. And so we get to marvel at that. And that is actually truly exhilarating. I think we'll do one more visit of the Paradigm Shift Integration Circle, one more invitation. You're welcome to join us. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be the ability to marvel, the ability to see, spot the choreography, have our faith bolstered, and marvel together, and get a lot of very practical guidance for our life, our life as a whole, our kind of quest to understand our nature, be our nature,